You know, as I'm looking over this string of tabs that I've got up here on my second monitor, I am reminded of the title to an old Harry Belafonte song. It says, Lord, what a morning. And that's exactly what this one's going to be like. How you doing out there in internet land? Hello, fellow members of Fedora Nation. My name is Brian Trippett. I am your Front Porch Conservative. Welcome back to Front Porch Brunch, our weekly gathering where we get together to hang out, talk about the news, and try and figure out what the heck is going on in the world. We are on YouTube, we are on Rumble, we are on Twitter. So if you haven't done it yet, and yes, I have already seen all of those wonderful tweets that you guys have been sending out, spread the word around, tell everybody to come on in, let's gather together, let's talk about the news, and boy, have we got a lot to talk about. It has been, I tell you what, I know that we're just now in the first few days of February, but I'll tell you what, if January is going to be any indication of what this upcoming year is going to be like, we're going to be busy. That's for daggone sure. We're going to be really busy. Good morning, everybody. Hello, Miss Leanne. As always, good to see you, my dear. Mwah. Loves you, loves you, loves you. Gypsy's over there on Rumble saying, hola, so much news. It's almost dizzying. Oh, sister, you are speaking truth. You are dropping the truth bombs. Let me tell you now. Woo, good to see you. And Dave, glad to see you can make it this morning. Sad that YouTube's, yeah. Algorithms are nefarious at best. I got lucky. Well, thank God it did show up in your feed, and I'm glad to have you here. It's cool to have you this morning. And we're going to let everybody kind of settle into the room. Oh, man, has it been a week? Has it been a week? I tell you what, while we're waiting for everybody to get into their chairs, I've got a couple of housekeeping announcements that I'll be happy to share. And I'm really excited about both of these. Next week, as you know, or you may remember, let me put it to you that way. On Thursday, the United States Supreme Court will hear the case of Trump v. Anderson, which is for more to give it a better idea what the case is about. It's the Colorado ballot access case. It's the appeal to the Supreme Court on the question of whether Donald Trump should be on the Colorado ballot. Well, Thursday night, in anticipation of that, we're going to have as a special guest on the program a returning guest, and a very cool gentleman. Let me go ahead and get this pulled up here. Attorney Daniel R. Street will be joining us to talk about in advance Colorado v. Anderson, which is going to take place the next morning. That interview with Daniel Street is going to be this coming Wednesday night, 7:30 Eastern. We're going to be on for about an hour. And we will be talking about the case, talking about a few other things going on at the Supreme Court, too. There's about 3 or 4 really big cases that are coming up that I'm just dying to see what happens. And some of them are very substantive. The question on Chevron deference, in other words, what can the administrative state do absent judges and Congress? How much power should they have? Do they have any power? So that's going to be a real interesting question. And then, and this is the one I'm really, really excited about. Thursday morning. Wait a minute. Hold it. Where'd you go? Hold it. Here it is. See, I boomered already. This Thursday morning, we are going to be doing live coverage of the oral arguments before the U.S. Supreme Court. Now, let me kind of back this up and explain how this is going to work. The federal judiciary does not allow cameras in the courtrooms, and most certainly the Supreme Court does not allow cameras in the courtroom. However, they do allow live stream audio. And I put a phone call into the office of the press at the Supreme Court, and that's exactly what they're going to do. They're going to live stream the audio of the proceedings. So what I'm going to do, and I haven't talked to my good buddy Ruben Christopher Haynes about this yet, but I don't think he's going to object too terribly. I'm going to live stream cover it Thursday morning. Now we're going to be on at 9:45. The arguments start at 10. So we won't be able to watch what they're doing, but we'll be able to listen to every word of it. And, having been through this before, I remember back in the days of Bush v. Gore, they had the arguments in front of the U.S. Supreme Court, and then maybe a few hours later, the transcripts were released. Well, the technology is now available. They can live stream it in real time. Now, like I said, you won't be able to see the visual, but you'll be able to hear every word of it. And we're going to cover it on my channel this Thursday morning, 9:45 a.m. The oral arguments will begin at 10. They'll run about an hour and a half. And later in the afternoon, the Supreme Court will upload a written transcript of of everything that was said during the oral arguments. I will attach that in the description of the video. And yeah, I'm really excited about this one because this one's going to be a load of fun, an absolute load of fun. So, we'll spread the word as the days go by. But yeah, we're going to have Daniel Street on Wednesday, and then we'll have the oral arguments on Trump v. Anderson this Thursday, starting at 9:45 in the morning. So that's going to be really kind of cool. So I hope you guys have had a good week. I hope you've had a lot of fun. I hope you've enjoyed time with your friends and family. And in the midst of all that, there's been things going on in the world. And I suppose we ought to start with the one that is the biggest in the past 24 hours. And it is this. As you all are aware, or hopefully are aware, the United States has launched strikes in Iraq and Syria, killing, according to reports, as many as 40 different individuals. This is from Reuters. And we're going to go through it and some various responses, tweets, etc. And, as always, guys, chime in. Want to hear what you got to say about it. This is always a fun and very lively group of people, and very smart. I absolutely believe it. I've got the smartest audience on the internet, bar none, hands down. You guys are absolutely awesome in terms of, your observations, your insights, your sense of history, the news sources that you guys pull from. You guys are absolutely fantastic. So yes, by all means, we're gonna get into this. So tell you what, let me take a sip of water. We'll get this party started. Someone once said to me, "You keep a glass of vodka." I was like, dude, if I had vodka and do this for 2 hours, I'd be wasted by the time I get done. But anyway, let's get into this. This is from Reuters. U.S. launches strikes in Iraq, Syria, nearly 40 reported killed. By article by Phil Stewart, Adriz Ali, and Timur Aziri. We read the following. The United States launched airstrikes in Iraq and Syria, killing against more than 85 targets linked to Iran's Revolutionary Guard and militias that it backs, killing nearly 40 people in retaliation for a deadly attack on U.S. troops. The strikes, which included the use of long-range B-1 bombers flown from the United States, were the first response to the attack last weekend in Jordan by Iran-backed militias, and more U.S. military operations are expected in the coming days. The strikes intensified a conflict that has spread into the region since the war erupted between Israel and Hamas after the militant Palestinian group's deadly assault on Israel on October 7th. Iran's foreign ministry spokesperson Nassar Kanani said in a statement the attacks represented, quote, another adventurous and strategic mistake by the United States that will result only in increased tension and instability. Now, I'm going to say something that honestly I thought I would never, ever say. This is one of those moments I don't disagree with the Iranian spokesman. Another adventurous and strategic mistake by the United States that will only result in increased tension and instability. He's not wrong. He's really not, but we'll get into that a little bit later. Anyway, let's move forward. Iraq summoned the U.S. Charge d'Affaires in Baghdad to deliver a formal protest. Iraq's Popular Mobilization Forces, a state security force including Iran-backed groups, said 16 of its members were killed, including fighters and medics. The government earlier said civilians were among 16 dead. In Syria, the strikes killed 23 people who had been guarding the targeted location, said Rami Abdulrahman, director of Syrian Observatory for Human Rights, which reports on war in Syria. U.S. Lieutenant General Douglas Sims, the director of the Joint Staff, said the attacks appeared to be successful, triggered large secondary explosions as the bomb hit military weaponry. He said the strikes were undertaken knowing that there would likely be casualties among those in facilities. Despite the strikes, the Pentagon has said it does not want war with Iran and does not believe Tehran wants war either, even as Republican pressure has increased on President Biden to deal a blow directly. And that is where I want to start and bring up this comment. The only time, Fox, yeah, you ain't wrong. Not from my perspective. Yeah, I cannot disagree with a word you just said. So it's the Republican response that I want to, I guess I want to start with. Before I do that, let me show you one thing from, let me see what we got here. Yes. Hold on. Sorry about that. Got a message in my inbox and I had to take a quick look at it. This is from CENTCOM. This is on their Twitter page. At 4 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, February 2nd, U.S. Central Command forces conducted airstrikes in Iraq and Syria against Iran's Islamic Revolutionary Guard, Quds forces, and affiliated militia groups. U.S. military forces struck more than 85 targets, numerous aircraft, including long-range bombers. Hold on to that thought about those long-range bombers, because somebody's going to make a point here in a minute, and it's a really good one. But we'll get to that. Just hang on to that thought about those bombers. The airstrikes employed more than 125 precision munitions. The facilities that were struck include command and control operation centers, intelligence centers, rockets and missiles, and unmanned aerial vehicle storages, and logistics and munition supply chain facilities of militia groups and their IRGC sponsors who facilitated attacks against U.S. and coalition forces. Okay. So there's the report from Reuters. There's what CENTCOM is saying about it. Now, as far as Republican reaction, I am going to pull up a quote from everyone's favorite South Carolina senator, Lindsey Graham, Republican, who, by the way, remember, has never seen a war yet he didn't want to get somebody else's kids killed in. Old Lindsey, I tell you what, you talk about practically frothing at the mouth. This is just, if you want to, this is just something that I'm not surprised by it, but then again, I have a serious dislike for Lindsey Graham anyway. But this, if you want the example of undistilled warmongering, this is it. Folks, I want you to check out his reaction that came out yesterday. It lasts about almost 10 seconds, and it will give you everything you need to know about neocon warmongering, war hawking in Washington, D.C.
If you want a war with us, bring it on. We'll blow you off the friggin' map. I'm not worried about losing a war with Iran. They should be worried about losing.
I got to play that again. I'm going to play this again, let you hear it, and then we're going to simmer on this for a minute.
If you want a war with us, bring it on. We'll blow you off the friggin' map. I'm not worried about losing a war with Iran. They should be worried about losing.
You know, yeah, that's a great question, brother. That's a great question. Or maybe the better question to ask is how many military munitions plants are in the state of South Carolina? Call me crazy. Like I said, man's never seen a war yet he didn't want to get somebody else's kids killed in. It just, I'm going to do my best not to lose my crap today because I apologize. Gypsy over on Rumble says, what is Lindsey's record on helping vets? That's a real good question. That's a real good question. I'm going to do my best not to lose it this week like I did last week, and I apologize to you guys because I blew a stack going off on some of the stuff that I was reading and hearing and everything else. It just boggles the mind. It really does. Boy. Anyway, well, in all fairness, though, I do have to say there are other reactions to what happened or has been happening, and one of them is just downright comical. And I know that's kind of hard to believe in the midst, uh, in the midst of in the midst of all this, that I would say that reaction to a war is comical, but I gotta give it where it's due here. Did you guys hear what happened to Joy Reid this week? I'm going to play this because this has been making the rounds, and honestly, I think this is funny. Basically, what happened was this. Now, let me set this up. So, Joy Reid is a host on MSNBC. She has a show called The Readout, and she was introducing another segment that was getting ready to go to a clip, which is fine. I mean, that's perfectly normal. It's what happens during that. That's actually kind of funny. So that sets it up. I'm going to let you guys hear this. Folks, take a listen to this.
Over the weekend, President Biden said he's ready to take action if Congress is serious about solving the border issue.
If that bill were the law today, I'd shut down the border right now and fix it quickly. And Congress needs to get it done.
Starting another fucking war.
Okay. I know I should not laugh at this, but this to me is funny. Okay. Starting another effing war. Yeah. Good point, Leanne. I don't know about hate, but Joy Reid knows what's going on. Now, to her credit, and what happens next, I think is the part that's worth commenting about, right? She realizes what's happened. Either she realizes it or somebody got in her earpiece and said, "Hey, Joy, you just dropped an F-bomb live on the air." I want you to listen to how she responds to this, because to me, this is very telling. And I don't want to. Hopefully I'm not trying to
before we
see too much into this, but this is. I'm going to play this, and I want you guys to know. I want to know if you guys have the same reaction that I did when I heard it. And Dave, hang on. I'm going to answer your question here in a minute. I'm not ignoring you, dude. But I'll answer it. But I want to play this first. I want you guys to listen to this. This runs about 23 seconds. And she, like I said, either she realizes what she did or somebody or the producer got in her earpiece and said, "Hey, you dropped an F-bomb live on the air." Now listen to what she does next. This is, to me, very telling.
Before we go, I just want to apologize very quickly. I was chatting during a clip that was playing, and we try to keep this show very PG-13. So I just want to apologize to anyone who was listening to my behind-the-scenes chatter. Deeply, deeply apologize for that, because it's PG-13 up around here. So thank you to you all for watching the readout. And Inside with Jen Psaki starts down.
Okay. Did you guys catch what was said, and more particularly, what she did not say? While you guys are typing your response in, I'm going to take a question here from Dave, and I'll answer it, and then I'm going to give you my take on this whole thing. Dave asks the question, whoops, sorry. Do you want your people on Rumble or YouTube, or do you care? Dave, that's a good question. That's a real good question. In my ideal world, I want everybody subscribing to both places, and I'll tell you why. I don't know when it's going to happen, and I don't know why it's going to happen, but somewhere down the line, sooner or later, I am going to run afoul of YouTube. Okay? I'm always going to try and be honest with my audience about what I think. I'm always going to try and give an honest take. Okay? If the day ever comes that YouTube decides to bounce me off the platform, either temporarily or permanently, I don't want to be disconnected from you guys, my audience. And I'm not trying to be hokey when I say that. And I'm not trying to suck up when I say that. I'm just being genuinely serious. I want to be able to go on, contributing, commentary. And, you guys hear my take and I hear your take and we all talk to each other. So to answer your question, if you run onto somebody and they ask you, hey, does Front Porch want me to subscribe on YouTube or on Rumble? Tell them both. I want them on both places. And I got to say something. Rumble is really surprising to me. I'm going to be honest. I have tried to promote a lot of what I do through YouTube because as a content creator advised me very early on when I got started, it's the biggest audience in the world. There's just no getting around it. For all of its aggravations and problems and frustrations and everything that content creators have about working on YouTube, let's just be honest, it's the biggest platform in social media. But without trying real hard, I have built like a small and steady and tiny little audience. Now maybe they're subscribers on both places. But yeah, my Rumble audience is growing quite nicely. I'm up to like 100 and I think it's like over 160 now subscribers on my channel, which is great for me. I'm tickled to death. I think Rumble's going to give YouTube a serious run for its money before it's all over with. But let's get back to this Joy Reid thing. Okay. Did you guys notice what she said and more particularly what she did not say? She didn't say, oh, I'm sorry. That's an opinion that I shouldn't have had or whatever. No, she apologized for the fact that you heard it and her wording. She didn't apologize for the take. Biden getting us in another effing war. She's not apologizing for the take. She's apologizing for how she worded it and the fact you heard it. Okay, now the fact that you heard it, okay, look, laying aside the F-bomb, okay, professionalism basically demands if you're working at that level, you shouldn't have a hot mic going during a clip where people are hearing your conversations, okay? So I can understand that part of it. Okay. But she's not apologizing for what she thinks. She's just apologizing for the fact that everybody heard it. That to me is telling. Now, maybe it's just Joy Reid in an isolated in the sense that she's just one member of the media, of quote liberal media, that has this take. Biden getting us in another effing war. Maybe there's more of them. I don't know. I found the whole thing to be fairly fascinating. I did. So, couple other observations as it relates. Larry, you can have whatever opinions you want. Do not start calling people who are in this chat names. Just saying. You can disagree with somebody all you want to, but you're not going to abuse people who come into this chat. You do, I'll have you bounced. No offense, but you're not going to do that. Do it again, I'll put you out. Okay, moving on. A couple other observations about these strikes that have just taken place. And these aren't necessarily coming from people that are of the right-wing persuasion. Let me show you something from CNN. And I think this ought to be mentioned. This is a headline from Breitbart. U.S. strikes less than Soleimani strike telegraphed enough to let the targets avoid them. On Friday's broadcast of CNN's Situation Room, CNN chief international correspondent Nick Patton-Walsh stated that the U.S. strikes in response to the fatal drone attack on U.S. soldiers seemed to be essentially telegraphed enough to give those on the receiving end enough time to relocate or lessen that potentially could have been done, and the strikes are smaller than the strike that killed Qasem Soleimani under the Trump administration. Walsh cautioned that there might be further strikes, but, quote, it does seem to be essentially telegraphed enough to give those on the receiving end enough time to relocate or lessen the damage that potentially could have been done. It seems carefully packaged with the use of B-1 bombers, abnormal. He's the first person making that observation, by the way. And the declaration that 85 targets were hit to make it feel as though this is significantly more substantial. It may indeed prove to have been the case, but so far we're looking at geographically areas that have been hit before over previous years. And we are, as I say, looking at a telegraphing of a response that will likely have reduced its effectiveness. We've heard from the Pentagon saying the weather was potentially behind some of the timing here too. Okay. And I can't disagree with him. I mean, look, I get the argument that says you want to try as much as you possibly can to limit civilian casualties in particular if you're going to do a military operation. Okay, I get that. That said, however, there's a difference between that and, walking up to the other boxer in the ring and saying, by the way, here comes my right hook. Get ready. I'm going to hit you with a right hook in 3, 2, 1. Here comes the hook. That is a problem where this is concerned, and it may be. Now, again, how or why these targets got hit the way they did and when they did, I don't know. It's not like I'm working at the Pentagon, and it's not like I'm sitting in the Situation Room of the White House. I'm just a guy that reads the news and kind of scratches my head every so often and goes, well, that's a little weird. But you get the point. So, yeah, that's a little odd. Now, I want to show you guys a map, and then I want to play you a couple of clips. And I'd like to get your guys' opinion on something. It's been said that since October that there have been at least 150 different attacks on U.S. targets in the Middle East. And not just targets, bases. Okay? Let me say that again. Not just targets, but bases. Take a look at this. I pulled this off of Fox News' website. This is a rough tally of all the targets around the Middle East that have been hit since October 17th. You got 3 up here in northern Syria. You've got 14 up here, northern Syria, 18, 17. You got a garrison down here. Bases all across Iraq, Syria, and now into Jordan. And I bring up this map to set up a couple of clips that we're going to hear next. And these come from Jack Posobiec, who is the editor over at Human Events. And he was on War Room. Natalie Winters was guest hosting. And he made a couple of interesting observations. And that's a good question. I don't know what to believe either. This is what we're being told. We're being told there's all these attacks on bases in the Middle East. I got a fundamental question. Let's assume for a moment, Dave and everybody else, let's assume for a moment this is true. And we've got a whole bunch of military installations to one degree or another in various countries in the Middle East outside of Israel. Okay. Now, having something inside Israel, you might understand on the grounds, okay, they're our ally, and, hopefully we've got good enough relations. But I want you to listen to something that was brought up by Jack Posobiec, and I want to play this. This one runs about a minute. Then we're going to play another one, runs another minute, but I want to get your guys' take on this. So this is Posobiec talking about the attacks launched by the Pentagon yesterday.
Iranian proxy forces, no.
If I'm not mistaken, it was just a few months back that I think some of our fire.
Sorry about that. Hang on. Should have backed that up to. Okay, here we go. My bad. Sorry. Should have rewound that before I played it. Here we go.
Specifics on the groups that were targeted other than they are IRGC sponsored groups. And so it's very interesting that we're seeing this, but also something that I would look at in terms of the fact that that it was B-1 bombers that were used in this situation. The fact that we used these stealth long-range bombers from the United States to the Middle East, it actually kind of sparks the question for us then, and Fox News loves to show their maps up of all the bases that we have in the Middle East. And of course, when they talk about it, they'll say, oh, well, look where all these strikes were. But in doing so, they're forced to actually show where we have troops on the ground in the Middle East. And something you'll never hear from Fox, something you'll never hear from the administration, is an actual explanation of why we have so many thousands of troops right now, including people who are friends of mine that are over there. Why do we have all of these troops there? What are they doing?
Now, that is a great point. And I want to bounce off of that, if I may. I think that's a very, very legitimate question. Remember what I said about the fact that we used B-1 bombers on this thing? We launched a bunch of B-1 bombers out of the United States. Long-range bombers flew them across the Atlantic, threw them across the Mediterranean, launched munitions, hit 85 targets inside Syria and Iraq. Posobiec brings up what I think is a very valid point. If we can launch strikes from the U.S. and hit targets in the Middle East, why in the infernal regions of hell do we have multi-thousands of troops stationed in and around the Middle East? Why do we have all these bases? Now, don't get me wrong. I recognize the logistical necessity that sometimes it is good to have a jumping off point if you're going to go perform some kind of a precision military operation. Okay. For years, Bagram Air Force Base in Afghanistan was that jumping off point for us, particularly during the War on Terror. Okay, so I get it. I get that. But Posobiec's bringing up a very valid point. Okay, a very valid point. And that is, if we can do all these strikes from inside the U.S., why are we got all these troops over there? I mean, again, going back to what he said, Fox News is showing all these maps, of all these targets that have been hit in the Middle East that belong to us. Why do we have all of these bases in Iraq, in Jordan, Saudi Arabia, other places around the Middle East, if they're not being used as that occasional one-off jumping point, which, like I said, I'd understand that. But why are we housing, at least by his estimation, upwards of 3,000 troops in and around the Middle East? Now, that also gets to something else, and that sets up the second clip. So this one runs about a minute. You guys take a listen to this, and you tell me what you think. Let me get this keyed up.
They doing? You just showed, by the way, the Pentagon, by the way, just showed us that they could send bombers over anytime they wanted to strike these groups, to strike these, and as here's the list right in front of me: intelligence centers, command and control operations centers, rockets, missiles, vehicle shortage, logistics. So great. So if we have the ability to bomb them all the way from the United States, why do we need 3,000 American forces there? Why not just send Eric Prince, a couple of the special ops guys, send them over, let them take care of business? Why do we need people in these engineering regiments and all these other places in harm's way? And it's simple, Natalie, I'll tell you right now, because there are people within our government, like Victoria Nuland, who is running around trying to put the pieces back together in Kiev right now, who are desperate for a wider war in the region with Russia and desperate for a war with Iran. Those troops that we have on the ground there exist as a tripwire, essentially a human meat shield, if you will, in order to produce more strikes in the region. This is exactly what the Biden administration wants. And by the way, it's exactly what the Iranian proxy forces know.
Okay. Let's get into this. Okay. All right. Fair enough. I can give you that one. By the way, good morning, loser. I can give you that one. But on this matter, is he necessarily wrong? I mean, look, the point is perfectly valid. If we can send a B-1 bomber, launch precision munitions, hit these targets, and not have to have troops on the ground doing it, why do we have all these troops in the Middle East? I'd really like to I mean, look, maybe I'm just being a contrarian for the sake of being contrary, but I'd like to have that question answered. I mean, something that he mentioned tripped something in my mind. I remember in the very early days of the Afghan war after 9/11, we were sending special operations units and CIA into Afghanistan, and very quietly and very effectively, according to reports, killing a crapload of terrorists. High level, low level, everywhere in between. Okay. Well, then Wolfowitz and Rumsfeld convinced the president, hey, we need to send troops in there. We need to do more than what we're doing. This isn't going to be enough. And sure enough, we're into Afghanistan, and just like every other major power over the past 2,000 years, we got bogged down in Afghanistan. But again, it begs the question, are we causing our own problem? In other words, is having these troops in the Middle East causing our kids to be attacked? Morning, Welsh. Glad to see you, sir. Glad to see you. Good to have you with us. I mean, this is my problem with what's going on here. You know, don't get me wrong. I believe in projecting strength. I also believe in letting people know, don't mess with us. But on the other hand, it's one thing for everybody to know they should not fight you. It's another thing to invite the fight. It's, to me, it's like the difference between, this is probably not the best analogy, but to me, it's really good. It's the difference between a Chihuahua and a Great Dane. A Chihuahua will bark at you all the time. Wants to get something going with you. A Great Dane will just sit there looking at that dog going, I know all I've got to do is lift one paw, swat that thing across the room, and I'll never have to deal with him again. And he doesn't do it. Why? It's not worth the expenditure of the energy. You got people like Lindsey Graham out there saying, hey, I'm not worried about a war with Iran. They ought to be worried about a war with us. Lindsey, you're missing the point. We don't want war with anybody. If you want war with them, it's your own business. Leave us out of it. Thank you very much. So this is some thoughts about what's going on. Oh, by the way, you ever heard the expression, be very careful what you say because it may someday come back to haunt you? Well, our current president is now experiencing that. Somebody found a clip from back in 2020 And I'm just going to put this out here for food for thought, okay? Take a listen to this. Tell me what y'all think.
The world has changed because what Trump has done. And the American people, including independents and some Republicans, know how bad he is, know how much he's misrepresented, know how he's getting close to getting us in a war. I said, as the walls close in on this man, I'm worried he's going to get us to war in Iran. Unfortunately, I may have been right. The fact of the matter is there's a lot at stake in this election.
You know, I don't think Joe realized just quite how prophetic he was being with that statement. It's just one little problem. He's talking about the wrong president. From my perspective, I think he's actually talking about himself. He just doesn't realize this yet. Let's see what kind of comments we've got out there. Says there's a lot of rebuilding construction plus available to kick in a door. And yeah, fair point. So let's see. Also, I think I saw another comment from Leanne a little bit earlier. Hang on a minute. Let me see if I can find this again. I have former cadets, now Marines, that were headed to Poland and were diverted to Syria. They got there on the 25th. Oh, yeah, that'll be. If they're at liberty to tell, I mean, I'll put it this way. I wouldn't ask you to ever betray their confidences, but if they ever give you any information you're allowed to pass on, let me know. I'd be curious to see what they've got to say. And by way of, excuse me, by way of comments that be careful what you say because it could one day come back to haunt you. I think there's just one more out there that ought to be played. Take a listen to this. Let me get this thing teed up. There we go. Check this out.
And I want to make it clear, and I made it clear to the president, that if he takes this nation to war in Iran without congressional approval, I will make it my business to impeach him. That's a fact. That is a fact.
That was from back in 2007. So, yeah, just one of those deals. Be very careful. Be very careful what you say, because someday it may come back to haunt you. Okay, got to take care of something real quick. Give me 1 second here, folks. Da 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 da. La da 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 da. La da 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 da. Bum, 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 bum. Hang on, folks. Didn't think I was going to have. Just almost finished. Got to take care of something. So anyway, while I'm doing that, do me a favor. These musical interludes. Loser, if this is your idea of a musical interlude, we're all in very serious trouble here. Very serious trouble indeed. Da 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 da. Bum 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 bum. Getting to know you. All right, we're just about there. Hang on. Oh, there we go. Sorry, had to take that off screen. Just need for one thing to pop up for me, and then I'll have this taken care of. Give me 1 second, folks. Almost there. Yeah, that'll do it. Oh, good. Oh, good. Gypsy, you've already taken care of it. Cool. Okay. Oh, yes, good. Okay, it took. I'm not going to have to do it. Gypsy? Oh, yeah, that's it. Okay, sorry. I didn't know if you got your wrench authority gives you permission to do this or not. Let me just make sure about this. Sorry about this, folks. Still getting used to the administrative functions that go along with Larry. Told you, don't go calling people names. You are removed by thine own hand. By the way, I should mention, it's kind of reaching the point for me that 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 I need to have some moderators. I've taken the liberty, having had a conversation with Miss Gypsy Muse. She is my first official mod. And Gypsy, I want to thank you very much for deleting some comments. If by the way, and Gypsy, if in that situation with our friend Larry, yeah, that's I mean, and you were probably maybe you were trying to do it and just I didn't give you enough authority to do it or whatever. But yeah, in a case like that where he's like, no, he's gone out. Anyway, got that taken care of. So anyway, that's what's going on in Syria with the strikes and everything else. So there you go. Anyway, my name is Brian Trippett. I am the Front Porch Conservative. Welcome to Front Porch Brunch. Glad to have all of you here on YouTube, on Rumble, on Twitter. And there are other items in the news. So if you haven't done it yet, send out a tweet, send out a Gettr, send out a Gab, a Truth Social, wherever you may communicate the fact that this show is alive and on the air and talking to people and talking about the news. And always appreciate it. If you're not a sub to my channel, give me a sub. Who did I see in here earlier? Bless her heart. I don't think I've ever seen her in here on a Saturday morning. Where did I see that comment? Very cool young lady. Oh, where is it? Oh, what was her name? Daggone it. Latino woman for Trump 2024. Welcome. Glad to have you here. I don't know if you've ever been here on a Saturday morning, but we're glad to have you. So there you go. Welcome to the show. Good point. Yep, good point. So there are other items in the news going on, and one of the biggest ones came out yesterday. I don't know if you guys have really had a chance to dive into this one, but I think it's worth talking about. Judge delays federal trial for Trump, considers his presidential immunity claims. Judge Tanya Shutkin called off the March 4th trial date, says she will set a new date after Trump's immunity appeal is resolved. Okay. I and others who are far smarter than I am, by the way, have been saying that this was probably going to happen. And I want to take you back in time to September of last year when Judge Shutkin got this case. She set a trial date of March the 4th. So basically September of last year to March the 4th of this year, 7 months. Now, the defense team said, Your Honor, there's no possible way we can prepare a defense in 7 months. There's way too many documents that we've got to go through. Plus, on top of that, we've got presidential power issues to appeal here. Shutkin wouldn't change her date. Well, Trump's legal team did exactly what they told the judge they would do. They were going to appeal it on the grounds of presidential immunity. And they appealed it up to the 3-member appeals court and told everybody, we think the president has immunity from this prosecution for these reasons. Well, that 3-judge panel has heard the case. Now, they expressed some skepticism in hearing it, but they haven't ruled yet. Well, it's now February the 3rd. That's like 31 days from Shutkin's start date of March the 4th. Well, there's no way in the world. Plus, here's the other problem. If that 3-judge panel, at least as I understand this, if that 3-judge panel rules against Trump, he has the right to appeal that up to the total 17 members of the appellate court in D.C. It's called en banc. If they rule against Trump, he can appeal that up to the U.S. Supreme Court, which would still be in session. So there ain't no way in the world this trial was ever going to get started on March the 4th. Now, conservatives of varying stripes are all giddy about this, okay? All right, and I can understand why they're happy about it. I'm not going to lie, I'm happy about it too, for various reasons. I think the whole case is bogus. The legal foundation that's been brought on is absolutely absurd. And on top of that, the Supreme Court's getting ready to rule on another case related to one of the J6ers that if it rules in favor of the J6er, it could gut half of the indictment that's being brought by Jack Smith. However, I caution my fellow conservatives, beware of something. Don't be surprised if sometime, I don't know, late spring or very early summer, if Shutkin puts this back on the docket. I'm not sure. Missing, I don't think it's necessarily the term I'd use. It's currently off the docket. She has said she's not going to move forward with this until they resolve the immunity issue. So, yeah. So we'll see. We'll see. But yeah, big victory for Trump. Well, no, I'm not gonna countenance that loser. No, we're not going to talk about any proclivities that Mr. Smith may have in that particular area. No, I will not address that at all. Everybody's like, what did he say? What did he say? Well, I mean, if you really want to know, have no idea. So anyway, there's that going on in the world right now. Over on Rumble, Gypsy Muse says, Robert Govia says the case removed from the calendar, not necessarily from the docket. Okay, well, there you go, Leanne. Yeah, it wouldn't surprise me if Shutkin tries to put this back on the calendar sometime in late spring or early summer after the Supreme Court rules on the question of immunity. Because in the end, they're going to rule on it. This thing's going up to the Supremes. Okay. So you got that going on. So let's move on to a other judicially related item in the news. Remember what I said a little bit earlier about be very careful what you say because it may very well come back to haunt you? We have a Fani Willis update. And it's always interesting with Fani because you never quite know what you're going to get. And I have to cue the music for our Fani update. There you go. Uh-huh. Getting down with everything. Fani Willis. Fulton County DA. That's right. Why am I doing this? I have no idea. Anyway, we have a Fani Willis update. And like I said, this is one of those moments, be very careful what you wish for or very careful what you say as it might very well come back to haunt you. We've got a clip, and this is from back in 2020 when Fani was running for office for district attorney in Fulton County. And I want you to listen to her justifications of why she's running and what she's got to say about the current Fulton County DA. Listen to this.
The district attorney's office in Fulton should be the beacon of the Southeast. It should be the absolute best office between Washington, D.C. and Miami. And right now, what you have is a office of dysfunction and corruption, and we deserve better. And I am the right choice to improve it.
Corruption, Ms. Willis, that's a strong word to level against the office that Paul Howard has run for nearly a quarter century. If he gets reelected, to be more than 25 years.
You have a DA sitting there that doesn't have the qualifications and the experience to do the job. What I can guarantee you is with my reputation, with my community ties, I am going to be able to attract the best and the brightest minds to that office. You're sitting with someone today that actually wants to make a difference because they deserve a DA that won't have sex with his employees, because they deserve a DA that won't put money in their own pocket when it should go to benefit children, because we deserve better.
Oh, it's moments like this in life that are absolutely delicious. God. And I really shouldn't laugh. I really shouldn't. But when someone like her, and I don't care if it's a woman or a man or whatever, I don't care. When you make a comment like that, and then you get caught doing the very thing that you've accused everybody else of, if you get roasted for it, hey, you've got it coming. And maybe she is a fan of Nathan's hot dogs. I'm just saying. Or hot dog. You can be right. Yeah, well, how do we not take pleasure out of this? And I think you guys know where I'm going with this. And so that sets up our Fani Willis update. Well, don't know if you guys have heard about this yet, but check this out. Remember what she said about not having sex with, employees? As the district attorney, if she's elected, that's not going to happen. Court filing. Fani Willis admits to relationship with her top Trump prosecutor. Article written by Wendell Husbo. Fulton County District Attorney Fani Willis admitted in a Friday court filing to a relationship with a lawyer she appointed to prosecute former President Donald Trump, but denied the relationship interfered with the case. Oh, really? Until Friday, Willis had not confirmed the affair or denied the impact of the relationship on the case. If Willis resigns or recuses herself from the case, it could effectively end the county's prosecution of Trump or potentially delay the proceedings until after the presidential election. Republicans have accused Willis of interfering in the presidential election. Now, for those of you who may not remember how this came about, one of the 19 defendants in the RICO case that Fani Willis has brought against former President Trump and everybody else filed with the court and said, hey, she's got an improper relationship with this top prosecutor of hers. You guys need to look into it. Well, everybody keeps digging, and the more they keep digging, the more they keep realizing, oh crap, something's going on here. Now, is what is happening strictly related to the legal questions that she's trying to bring up? No, not in my opinion anyway. But I don't see how you can prosecute this case when it's been found out that you are guilty of everything you just accused the former guy who held the office of. Okay? So let's take it one step further. Let me see if I can find this here. Hang on a minute. Give me 1 second. Working on something. Where is it? Where is it? Come on. Hang on a minute, guys. Oh, come on. Where is this? I just had it pulled up. Where did it go? Oh, here it is. Okay. Sorry about that.
You had to give me
All right. Oh, this is why you're so spicy this morning. Okay, that starts to explain it. I told you I got the best audience on the internet, hands down. So now she has admitted, yeah, I have a relationship with the top prosecutor who, by the way, was billing the White House to the tune of about $2,000 because he met with the special counsel, and on top of that, met with the members of the J6 committee and everything else. And then it gets even better. Have you guys heard about the whistleblower that was in Fani's office? Oh, this is priceless. This just came out earlier this week. So a whistleblower came to Fani Willis about some problems that were going on. And the audio tape of that conversation leaked. Okay. Now I'm going to play this. This runs about 2 minutes. I always want to try to be completely fair here. All right. So this to me is really interesting. Now, this has to do not necessarily with her lover boy, but it does give you some idea of what was going on in the DA's office. Yeah, well, hang on to that, loser. We'll get to that in just a second. We'll get to that. Hold on. So anyway, this runs about 2 minutes. I want you guys to hear it. This whistleblower is coming to Fani Willis and telling her about a problem with one of Fani's subordinates. So that sets up what you're going to hear next. If I need to stop this at various points, I will. But here we go.
Sentence. What is the sentence theme?
Once I told him about his, respectfully and in an email, about his lack of leadership and the fact that he wanted to do things with grants that were impossible. And I kept telling him, like, we can't do that, and questioning stuff. He would take me off projects, tell people I wasn't doing what I was supposed to because I questioned him. Because I understood, I helped write that grant. I knew what was in that grant. He told everybody in front of Crystal, Deontay, everybody, we're going to get MacBooks, we're going to do that, we're going to get swag, we're going to use it for travel. I said, you cannot do that. It's a very, very specific grant. Took me off. I questioned Junior DA. There's kids in there from out of the county, all this. Took me off Junior DA. I did not want to do it. He made it look as if I wasn't doing what I needed to do because I questioned him.
Okay, you realize what she's saying here. This coworker in the office, he's trying to use money that's from a federal grant to get, in his words, swag and other stuff. She's telling him, you can't do this. This money is specifically to be used for very specific things. You can't do what you want to do. She tells him this. He starts pulling her off of duties and responsibilities that she's already got. So she's going to Fani Willis and saying, this is what's going on. This is why it's happening. We continue.
Because I knew for a fact Mr. Cuffey respectfully did not know what he was doing, period.
So I respect that is your assessment. It was clear to me that you and Mr. Cuffey were not getting along. And I'm not saying that your assessment is wrong. I want you to really listen to the words I'm saying.
Cuffey, and this is my personal opinion, to one woman to another, is dangerous to your administration. He tells people, when I reached out to you, he told me, you think your word is safe? And exactly when you reached out to Miss Willis, she called me and told me, she told me everything. So once you reach out to her, she's going to reach back out to me. So I didn't even go to HR because he put Dexter's name on my PDP, and I didn't even feel safe going to anybody.
Okay, I don't know about y'all, but to me, this constitutes hostile work environment. But that's just saying.
Can I tell you something?
Mm-hmm.
I have 3 supervisors that have failed in this field. What's interesting to me, because I'm in a learning curve too, they each pretend to have a relationship with me that they do not have.
Mm-hmm.
I guess that's an intimidation tactic.
Mm-hmm.
I'm sorry that you felt that way, but Dexter certainly don't have no relationship with
Right.
Michael Cuffey. You were safe to go those places.
Okay, that's the clip. What do you guys think? Yeah, that was probably one of the smartest things she ever could have done. That is probably one of the smartest things she ever could have done. Totally. Oh yeah, she needs to go. She really needs to go. I mean, I asked the question a minute ago, is what she is contending in her charges against Donald Trump related to what's going on with her personally and professionally in her office? Not necessarily, but here's the problem. It's reached the point where even people on the political left who don't even like Trump, who really can't stand the guy, even they're saying she got to go. And if you don't believe me, take a listen to this. I think I've got this queued up at the point I need it to be. But hang on. Yeah, here we go. This is on CNN. Their legal analyst, Eli Honig. Take a listen to his comments about this.
Here to talk about this, senior legal analyst Eli Honig.
Hang on. I think it's right. Yeah.
I think Trump's still going to lose this case, but it may not be as quickly and as cleanly as we expected.
Very quickly on Fani Willis, should she recuse herself and step down after all this?
Absolutely. I think if she doesn't do it voluntarily, there's a good chance the judge forces her to do it. I read her response today. It doesn't, in my mind, answer the key questions, not about the relationship. It doesn't matter to me if they're having a romantic relationship or just some other relationship, but about the flow of money, the potential conflict of interest, and her, I believe, wildly improper statements that she's made publicly that are going to prejudice the jury pool here. I think she should step aside. And if she doesn't, I think there's a good chance the judge forces it.
Well, so what are my prognostications about regarding Fani's removal from the case? Well, I'm so glad you asked me that question. It wouldn't surprise me if it happened, and I think there's pretty good reason. I mean, Honig brings up a valid point, okay? The guy from CNN brings up what I think is a very valid, fair point. Okay, the fact that she's having an affair with someone in her office, okay, that's not good. But not necessarily, how do I want to put this? Not necessarily problematic in and of itself, provided that the proper walls and boundaries are being established, on a personal and professional level, okay? Knowing very full well they're in a relationship, she can't be assigning him to cases for various reasons, and what they do needs to be very limited of each other professionally. Outside the office, I mean, look, they're two consenting adults, okay? If they happen to feel a romantic relationship for each other, I mean, who am I going to say to stop that? The fact he was married and they may have been doing it, that's a whole other problem, okay? But laying that aside, if these two people are having a romantic relationship and they just happen to work at the same place, that's one thing. Where it starts crossing lines is what's apparently going on here. Okay? She's assigning him cases. He's making money off of it. They're taking, vacations together. He's buying her gifts. He's doing whatever else. Then you got this whistleblower coming forward about what's going on in the office. With the fact you've got employees of hers that are potentially wanting to misuse funds that are designated only for certain things. She's got huge legal problems here. And again, I'm no lawyer. I'm just a guy watching what's going on and making my commentary. But I don't see how in the world she can go forward with this case against Trump, not necessarily because of the strength or weaknesses of the charges. This woman's compromised by actions unrelated to the charges against Trump. I don't think there's any way in the world she can prosecute this case or have the boyfriend prosecute it. Not now. And from what I understand, there's a whole lot of rumblings in the Georgia legislature right now where they're taking up various investigations. Somebody's even introduced articles of impeachment against the woman in the Georgia legislature. This is going to go before. If she goes forward with this case, or more to the point, is allowed to go forward with it, I will be shocked. I really will. And frankly, as more and more information comes out about these two, it's going to be extraordinarily difficult for the powers that be down in Georgia to let this thing go on. Now, I'm not talking about the governor, Brian Kemp. It's more or less established where he's at in all of this. Okay? But the Georgia legislature, if they've even got an ounce of a conscience, they need to shut this thing down and do it now. I mean, look, regardless of what they think of Trump, like him, don't like him, whatever else, we're talking about the integrity of public officials here, particularly ones that are supposed to be prosecuting and, more to the point, causing the law to be upheld. I'm sorry, the woman's compromised. She should not be on this case at all. Lay aside its legal merits, lay aside everything else. There's no way in the world Fani Willis ought to be allowed to go forward with this. This is crazy. Yeah, good point. He can end this, but he won't do it. Kemp could bring this to a grinding halt with the snap of a finger. He will not do it. You're absolutely right, Leanne. Absolutely right. Oh, my. Just extraordinary. Absolutely extraordinary. Anywho, to go back to something that loser brought up a minute ago, I want to address this. I don't want to ignore what he said because I've got an article about this. This is from the Washington Free Beacon. Fani Willis claims whistleblower was a poor employee. Willis office-wide emails say otherwise. Let me see if I can enlarge this a little bit, make it easier for people to read. Apologies, I didn't do that earlier. Here we go. This is an article by Andrew Carr from yesterday. Fulton County District Attorney Fani Willis defended her decision to fire an employee who blew the whistle on attempted abuse of taxpayer funds in her office, saying in a statement on Friday that she terminated the whistleblower for poor work performance. But Willis sang a different tune about the whistleblower. Former Director of Juvenile Diversion Amanda Timpson, in the months leading up to her abrupt termination in January 2022, emails obtained by the Washington Free Beacon show. Willis sang Timpson's praises in a staff-wide email on September 1st, 2021, saying the whistleblower had, quote, a dynamic skill that would serve her well in her new role as liaison between two departments in the office. Timpson told the Free Beacon that file clerk was a more appropriate description of the role, to which she said Willis demoted her after she first warned the district attorney in July of 2021 meeting that one of her top aides was trying to misappropriate a federal gang prevention grant to pay for, quote, swag, travel, and computers. Amanda Timpson will become our new liaison between records restriction and pretrial diversion. Willis said in an email she has been dynamic, serving with Valencia Younger, and will continue in that role, assisting with records, but she now will expand to working intimately with adult diversion as directed by Deputy Toole and Deputy Chief of Staff Epiphany Henry. I am excited about this dynamic group. Yeah, she gets bounced. This whistleblower, Timpson, gets bounced out of the office about 2 or 3 months later, and Willis is now trying to claim, well, we had to get rid of his poor work performance. That's not what you were saying earlier. Now that I have no idea about. That I have no idea. Couldn't tell you. Wouldn't say I'd be surprised if I found out to be true, but I wouldn't. Have no idea. Oh, hang on. Godiva breaks down White House letters here. Let me see if I can. Hang on a minute. Yeah, Gypsy just dropped something over. Hey, Gypsy, can you do me a favor and drop that into YouTube chat? What you just dropped over there on Rumble. It'd be easier for me to just pop that in because I think it was Loser who was asking about this very thing. Loser, Gypsy's got a hold of something from Robert Govia, who's an attorney, talking about the collusion between the White House and Fani's chief prosecutor, Nathan Willis. So yeah, drop that in for Loser's benefit. Loser, check that out when you want to. But yeah, we got We got receipts. We got receipts, brother. Anyway, so you got all that going on. So that more or less ends everything that I've got by way of regular news. And perhaps at the earliest point we've ever done this, we're ready for HodgePodge Stew. And for those of you out there who maybe have never joined us before for Front Porch Brunch, HodgePodge Stew are those collection of stories that are not above the fold, still important, still we ought to be talking about them, but they're not the biggest headline drivers. So yeah, we got a whole bunch of stuff in HodgePodge. This may be the biggest pot of stew by way of news stories that I've ever thrown together for a Saturday morning. So I'm kind of proud of this collection. I'm still looking up here at my second monitor, and I got this whole string of tabs. I'm like, this could get real interesting here. So yeah. And good morning, Robert. Lies always pile up and crash down the liar. Bye-bye, Fani. You got that right, brother. You got that right. So anyway, before we get into HodgePodge Stew, let me do a real quick commercial. My name is Brian Trippett. I'm the Front Porch Conservative. We are on YouTube, Rumble, and Twitter. So thank you for stopping by. We're glad to have you on this nice Saturday morning. It's sunshiny outside. It's kind of nice looking, really cool out there. But glad to have you here with us. As I say, we're on YouTube, Rumble, we're on Twitter. And I know you guys have been doing it, so thank you for all the tweets and retweets and sending word out to your friends and everybody else. So glad to have you all here. So let's take a deep dive into HodgePodge Stew. And first story in the morning by way of dishing out the stew, we've got a Ukraine update. And I got a couple of different Ukraine stories. And the first one, I'm not necessarily surprised by. It's the second one that's weird. And I just mean when I say weird, I can't get a handle on what the heck is going on here. Okay. So let's go with the one that I do understand. And by the way, I'm not necessarily surprised by. This is from NPR. Did you guys hear about this? Ukraine says corrupt officials stole $40 million meant to buy arms for the war. Now, keep in mind, this ain't coming from Breitbart. It's not coming from Steve Bannon's War Room. It ain't coming from One America News. This is coming from good old lefty NPR, okay, and the Associated Press. Yeah, I was shocked too, Connecticut. I was shocked too. But let's get into this. This is from a few days ago. Kiev, Ukraine. Employees from a Ukrainian arms firm conspired with defense ministry officials to embezzle almost $40 million earmarked to buy 100,000 mortar shells for the war with Russia, Ukraine's security service reported. The SBU said late Saturday that 5 people have been charged, with one detained while trying to cross the Ukrainian border. If found guilty, they face up to 12 years in prison. The investigation comes as Kiev attempts to clamp down on corruption in a bid to speed up its membership in the European Union and NATO. Good luck with that. Officials from both blocs have demanded widespread anti-graft reforms before Kiev can join them. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky was elected on an anti-corruption platform in 2019, long before Russia's full-scale invasion of Ukraine in February 2022. Both the president and his aides have portrayed the recent firings of top officials, notably that of Ivan Bakanov, formerly the head of State Security Service, in July 22, as proof of their efforts to crack down on graft. Security officials say the current investigation dates back to August 2022, when officials signed a contract for artillery shells worth $1.5 billion, which is in U.S. dollars $39.6 million, with arms firm Liev Arsenal. So, I didn't have time to pull it up, and I wish now I had. There was a Time article from a couple of months ago, and it was it was before Thanksgiving, talking about Zelensky's most recent visit to Washington, D.C., and there was a Ukrainian official who was interviewed for that Time magazine article, who said, yeah, they're stealing money in Kiev hand over fist. Well, you want an example of what's being talked about? Here it is. $40 million of monies that should have been used to buy munitions for the war against Russia, and people been dipping into the till, and they pulling out quite a bit of cash. And we want to give them 60 billion more. Oh, that sounds like a great idea. Which, by the way, that gets to the second story that I've got by way of Ukraine update. And this one's weird. Now, let me explain exactly what I'm getting at here. Okay? I say it's weird, and I'll set up the context for this. I had heard about this story maybe Tuesday of last week. And I almost did a video on it. But I held off because I'm like, okay, I need to invoke the rule here that says you wait 48 to 72 hours for every shoe to drop. Okay. The Bongino rule, for lack of a better term. Dan Bongino's great rule about, wait 48 to 72 hours to make sure everything has come out before you start talking about it. So I did. And I held off on saying anything because I'm like, all right, maybe I'm just misinterpreting this and I'm jumping the gun. Well, then the story kept getting weirder as it went on. So having teased this up, let me start pulling in some articles here and I'll show you what's going on. This is from the UK Guardian, which is by no means any kind of a right-wing newspaper, by the way. This is from, let me get the date on this thing. Hang on. I'm pretty sure this was... don't you dare do this to me. Don't you dare. Now we'll read the headline. Ukraine's top general refuses request from Zelensky to step down. Personality clashes blamed for conflict between president and popular commander Valery, and it's pronounced Zelensky. Okay. Now, I don't know much about Ukrainian politics or Ukrainian generals or whatever else, but here's what I've been told. This Zelensky is probably one of the most popular military officials in the country of Ukraine. Think of him the way that we might have viewed at one time a Norman Schwarzkopf, for those of y'all out there in the audience, who remember that name from back in the day. Or, for older generations, it might have been a General Patton. Okay. Zelensky is kind of that kind of popular in the country of Ukraine, particularly among the military. Well, the story goes, according to the UK Guardian, that for some reason, Zelensky wanted Zelensky fired, or at a minimum, stepping down. Okay. So that story broke maybe Tuesday last week. Well, then it gets followed up by a story out of the Times of London, and this one I'll bring up. Zelensky does a U-turn after telling Ukraine's top general he would be sacked. President keeps Valery Zelensky as commander-in-chief of the armed forces under pressure from top military brass amid rumors of a growing rift. President Zelensky told commander-in-chief of Ukraine's armed forces he was dismissing him, but was forced to reverse his decision under pressure from senior military commanders and international partners. According to senior officers, Zelensky was summoned to a face-to-face meeting with Zelensky on Monday, where he told the president that his advisors' assessments of the military situation were more positive than realistic. It was the first time that the pair had met without Zelensky's advisors in a year and a half, one officer said. He was then asked to resign, according to three sources. When he refused, Zelensky said he would sign a decree dismissing him. Now, before I go any further with this, yeah, exactly. That's exactly what I was thinking. Well, not Eisenhower, Truman, but you're close. This smacks of that situation in the Korean War when MacArthur wanted to get further north into China. Truman didn't want to do it. And finally, it got to the point Truman had to go over to Korea and sack Douglas MacArthur. And I'm sitting here going, okay, you wanted his resignation. He wouldn't give it to you. You tried to fire him, and you had to back off of that. I have a question. No, it's all good. It's all good. Don't worry about it. I have a question. Who the heck is in charge of Ukraine? Now, people are going to say that I'm reading way too, that I'm asking the wrong question here, and maybe I am. But Zelensky's supposed to be the president. The military is supposed to answer to the civilian authority, or at least that's how I would understand that. And yeah, well, who's in charge of Ukraine? Victoria Nuland. Sister, I don't think you're all that wrong. But my point is this. What the heck is going on over here? At a time, might I add, when Senate Majority Leader Chuck Schumer says they're going to push through a $60 billion supplemental for Ukraine. Okay, you got money, you got people over in Ukraine stealing money hand over fist. You got $40 million that was supposed to go buy weapons for Ukraine and wound up in somebody else's pocket. We know about this. NPR and the Associated Press have already reported this. We've got some kind of instability going on between the civilian and military leadership in Ukraine, and we're about to try and drop another $60 billion right in the middle of Ukraine. Does this make any sense to anyone? Oh, come on. You just didn't want to fund Ukraine in the first place. Yeah, you're absolutely right. And these are the reasons why. There's a lot of reasons why I've wanted the U.S. to stay out of this whole damn thing. Pardon my language. And here's some reasons and proof of the why we ought not be involved in this damn thing. Arguments to the contrary aside. So that sets up some commentary. And I have to be fair here. I've got to give a hat tip to a gentleman by the name of Ben Harnwell. Now, if you've never heard of him, I'll give you a little bit of introduction. Harnwell is an independent journalist based out of Rome, Italy. He's a regular contributor, and full disclosure, he's a regular contributor to Steve Bannon's War Room on Real America's News Network. Okay. Now, that's just full disclosure. Harnwell was the one who I heard about this story from. And they got into a discussion about what it all means. And I want to play you a clip, and I'm not sure where I'm going to cut this off. But Harnwell goes into this discussion, and to set this up, so Bannon's asking him, what the heck is going on over there with these stories coming out of the UK Guardian and the Times of London? Well, let me give you Harnwell's assessment of this situation.
Right. It's turmoil. So
that's a good way of describing it, but we continue.
Basically, just a very, very quick recap. On Monday, there was a showdown between Zelensky and Zelensky, the commander-in-chief. Zelensky invited his most senior general to resign. Zelensky said no. He said, okay, then I'm firing you. I'll sign the decree. Zelensky went back to his office. His team had done a huge work in priming social media. They spoke to the Americans. They spoke to the British. They also spoke to the military top brass. So within hours, whilst Zelensky was speaking to his two candidates that he wanted to replace him, both of whom, by the way, Steve, turned him down and said, no, we don't want it. This is the commander of the Ukrainian land forces and Budanov, General Budanov, Lieutenant General Budanov, the head of the Ukrainian intelligence, both said no. In that period, finds himself with no alternatives. The country massively, in very quick time, turned against this, and Zelensky has now backed down. I asked the rhetorical question in the morning show, Steve. What this, the thing that really hit me on all of this is that the Americans and the British, right, we're the guys financing this war, right? Our political and military leadership, right, they put pressure on Zelensky to back down. They find out about this because they're reading the newspapers and watching the social media. Zelensky did not show them the respect to phone them up and tell them, I'm going to substitute my most senior military commander in this war. And interestingly, Steve, I'll just close with this because I know you have some questions. But Zelensky, by way of explanation to Zelensky, said, "Oh yeah, you know why I'm getting rid of you?" He didn't cite the failed counteroffensive, and he didn't cite the hot potato, which is the drafting of the 500,000 Ukrainians, which neither the political nor the civil sphere in Ukraine wants to take responsibility for. He said, this work, we're getting Ukraine fatigue on the ground here in Ukraine. People are losing interest in the war, and my Western allies are starting to back out. I think if I substitute my top commander, that might give me sort of a bit more enthusiasm on those two scores. Yeah. So that's basically the degree of the conversation over in Ukraine.
Is there a coup going?
Okay. Sorry that ran as long as it did, but I wanted to give you guys as much full context on that as I possibly could. Now, is Harnwell producing any receipts for some of what he's saying? Well, no, but then again, I'm not necessarily saying he's wrong. I just haven't seen some of what he's saying. Maybe he's reading newspapers that are over in Europe and he's picking up on some of this and he's just not mentioning it. Okay, that's fair enough. And that would be a fair criticism. But if what he is reporting is correct, that Zelensky wanted to sack his top general on the grounds that perceptions of the war in Ukraine are getting so bad that people in the West don't want to put any more money into it, which I think is very altogether possible. And getting rid of your top general in the field, you think somehow this is going to make your situation better? I don't know about anybody else, but that doesn't sound like a real good idea to me. That sounds like you have a you problem, not a general problem. Okay. So I watched this play out over the course of 3 or 4 days, and I'm like, okay, hang on. We got some news here. Alex from the Duran says Zelensky is out after. Now, has Newland already visited over there, or she's going to go visit? Now, and this could be it's already happened, and I'm not aware of it. But I'm just curious: has she already gone over there for the visit, or she's getting ready to? I'd be just curious to know. So yeah, there's our latest Ukraine update. It's chaos. Oh, she's there now. She is there now. She was there. Okay, so she's either there now or she's just been there. Okay. That starts to explain some things. All right. Well, we'll keep an eye on this. This is what I'm saying. We've got complete and absolute chaos over there right now. And what's our senators and congressmen getting ready to do? They're trying to dump another $60 billion into this thing. We have no idea what is going on. We're not totally sure who's in charge. We've got money getting to, we've got corruption hand over fist going over there. Not my words, Time Magazine, who's quoting a Ukrainian official, and we're getting ready to dump more money into this? Oh, that makes a lot of sense. In the meanwhile, we've got a southern border that's wide the hell open. You got the Biden administration wanting to cut down razor wire, just let more of them in even faster. But no, we'll make sure that Ukraine's borders are okay, but the hell with our own southern border. Does this make any sense to anybody? Oh my God, this is nuts. No, this isn't even nuts. This is just stupid. We're past the point of being crazy. We passed the border of crazy. We're now walking around in the realms of the moronically stupid. Dear God, deliver us from this. Jeez. I'm keeping my promise. I'm not losing my temper. See. Woo! Yeah, thank you, Dave. I genuinely appreciate that. I really do. Woo! I mean, you just wow. Like I said, we passed the border of crazy. We're now, lollygagging around in the realms of the moronically stupid. Jeez, oh Pete. Whew. Well, there are other items in the news. There are other things going on in the world. Hang on a minute. Let me pop this up here. U.S. Undersecretary of State Victoria Nuland said in Kiev this week that a new, quote, small diameter bomb may help targets at greater distance. I've got an idea for a target. How about we, instead of targeting a distant area, we figure out a way to arrive at a peace table? How about that? This is the meditative portion of the stew. Oh, well, there are other things going on in the news, and we are, if you're just joining us, it's about 12:05 Eastern. I'm Brian Trippett. This is the Front Porch Conservatives Brunch, and we're hanging out on YouTube and Rumble and Twitter, and if you're just stopping by, we're glad to have you. A few other items in the news. By the way, did you know that the Democrat primary in South Carolina was taking place tonight? I am not covering it, and I'm not trying to avoid covering it, but to me, it's more or less a foregone conclusion that Joe Biden's going to win the Democratic primary in South Carolina tonight, which is the first official party function that starts, handing out delegates on the road to the Democrat National Convention in August in Chicago. So knowing very full well that Joe Biden is not going to lose the South Carolina primary, I'm not covering it tonight because to me it's just kind of irrelevant. Same thing with Nevada next week. Okay, I'm not covering the Nevada caucus, not because I don't think it's important, but Donald Trump is on the ballot against somebody who will not even get a delegate. Nikki Haley's running in the Nevada primary. She's the only person on the ballot. Oh, by the way, you want to hear something funny? I haven't got it pulled up in front of me, but I saw a news article this week that supposedly she is losing to none of the above in the Nevada primary. I'm serious. If this is true, she is supposedly losing to none of the above. You can write in, apparently you could write in a name on the ballot. And I guess there's a move afoot out in Nevada to get Trump's people to vote in the primary and write in none of the above so Nikki Haley loses. I heard about that and I almost died laughing. It's too funny. But yeah, I'm not covering the Nevada primary. I'm not covering the Nevada primary because I know what's going to happen out there. Trump's going to get every daggone delegate. And I also know that that Biden is going to win the South Carolina primary. However, there are two aspects of the South Carolina primary that I will monitor tonight. And I bring them to your consideration. One of them is the percentage by which Biden wins. It's going to be big. It's going to be absolutely huge. Okay. So maybe that one's not as important as the second one, the African American vote. And I say that to set up the article I'm going to show you next. This is from NBC News. Representative Jim Clyburn helped Biden win young black voters in 2020. This time, they are not listening. Clyburn, Democrat, South Carolina, has been campaigning for Biden ahead of the South Carolina primary. His frustration with young voters is palpable. This is an article written by Peter Nicholas and Aaron Gilchrist. Representative Jim Clyburn was preaching to the choir in every sense. Clyburn was the guest speaker at a black church here on a recent Sunday, telling the audience that a certain candidate for high office deserves to lose. He didn't mention Donald Trump by name, but it was clear whom he meant. The Democrat congressman from South Carolina rattled off a list of ways Trump has insulted black Americans over the years. Sitting in the pews, the largely middle-aged and older congregants applauded the message. The trouble for Clyburn, age 83, is that the people he most needs to hear him weren't the ones listening. The next day, Clyburn cast an early vote for President Joe Biden in South Carolina's Democratic primary. He held a news conference afterward and laid out the stakes. Quote, "Do you want this country to be led by someone who time and again demonstrates misogynistic tendencies and racist attitudes," he said, standing outside the polling place on a blustery morning in Orangeburg, South Carolina. Is that what you want? Without Clyburn, there might never have been a Biden presidency. I'll argue that is a certainty. In 2020, his endorsements revived Biden's flailing campaign. Clyburn cemented Biden's status as the favorite of black voters, helping him win South Carolina's primary and vaulting into the party's nomination. Now, polling shows that young black voters are peeling away from Biden in numbers that worry Democrat officials. Clyburn, for his part, sounds indignant. Compare Biden's history to Trump's, he says. Trump has been demeaning black Americans for decades, he adds, while Biden has compiled a record rivaling that of Lyndon Johnson's Great Society of young black voters who've grown disenchanted with Biden. Clyburn said, quote, "I want them to stand in front of me and tell me they will support Trump's record over Joe Biden's record." NBC polling in 2023 found that black voters overall favored Biden over Trump 73-17. But when it came to voters under the age of 34, the margin shrank. Among that slice of the black electorate, Biden's support fell to 60%, Trump rose to 28%. In 2020, Biden won 87% of black votes, including 89% between the ages of under 29, 78% of those between 30 and 44. Okay, that sets up what I think is probably maybe the most important factor to keep an eye on tonight in the South Carolina primary. And that is the African American vote. Because the folks at NBC aren't necessarily saying anything that, isn't already been talked about by a lot of people. One of them being Rich Barris, aka the People's Pundit. Follow him on YouTube and locals and everywhere you possibly can. He's one of the smartest guys out there. But every pollster's been finding this. Doesn't matter if it's Barris or Spencer, the guy, first name is Spencer, I'm sorry, up at Emerson polling firm. I mean, a lot of polling firms around the country have been finding the same thing. Biden is bleeding African American vote, particularly young African Americans. And if you don't believe me on this, let me show you something. A guy from MSNBC went down to a barbershop in South Carolina recently. Has anybody seen this clip? Just out of curiosity, have any of y'all seen this clip? Because if you haven't, I'm going to play this for it. And I think this is very telling. Okay. Take a listen to this. It runs about 30 seconds, but I think this is very informative. Okay. So, guy's sitting around, he's talking to 4 African American voters in South Carolina. Check this out.
There are some people in your orbit who are either voting for Donald Trump or considering it?
For sure. A lot of my friends are obviously my age, so we're a little younger. We've only voted once, for a president. And Trump is kind of all we know. And they're kind of Trump and Biden. They're like, well, we were broke with Biden. We weren't with Trump. And that's kind of the only thing that I'm hearing over and over again is that, well, Trump, we had money. Well, okay.
Ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to make a statement, and I don't think I'm too far off base with this. African Americans aren't the only ones noticing this. With Trump, they had economic prosperity, or maybe it's better to say a greater degree of it than they got right now. They didn't have inflation that was eating into their purchasing power. They didn't have lower wages where, they could afford things like vacations and other items that they'd like to have in their life, and they can't necessarily do it. They didn't have floods of illegal immigrants coming in and taking jobs in their communities. With Biden, everything I just described is exactly what they've got. Plus, there is a certain segment of the African American community that looks at the legal actions against Trump, particularly Fani Willis down there in Atlanta, and they're saying, man, they're going after Trump. He's my guy. When the man is going after Trump, Trump might not be black, but Trump's my guy. That article about Clyburn reminds me of something that happened in my home state back in 2000, and I'll never forget this. Most of y'all know or will remember that West Virginia for the longest time was considered an absolute stronghold for Democrats, especially at the presidential level. The election of 2000 began to change that. Changed a lot of things in my state politically. But I will never forget the night of the 2000 election. When it was announced that West Virginia had gone for George W. Bush, a Republican, over Al Gore, the Democrat, everybody in the news media was shocked. I happened to be watching CBS News that night, and Dan Rather, who was then anchoring the coverage for CBS News, turned to the late Ed Bradley, who was the legendary correspondent on 60 Minutes, turned to Ed Bradley and said, Ed, what happened in West Virginia? This is just a stunning development, which it was, legitimately. I mean, I don't think Rather was saying anything out of school here. It was a legitimately stunning development. Bradley said that he'd been talking to the Gore campaign all through the months leading up to the election. Because people had mentioned the possibility there was something going on in West Virginia, but most people refused to believe it. And Bradley said, yeah, I've been talking to the Gore campaign, and the Gore campaign told us, hey, we're not worried about West Virginia. Robert Byrd's going to deliver West Virginia. We've got it. We're great. We're fine. We're good. Well, Byrd couldn't do it. After that, I mean, Byrd always had a frosty relationship with Republican presidents anyway. But man, when it came to George W. Bush, it was everything that old man could do, not just spit on the ground when George Bush came around. It was just that bad. And that's what Clyburn's attitude reminds me of here. And you got to look at it from Clyburn's perspective. This guy's been in politics in South Carolina for decades, okay? He's about as senior and venerated a politician down there as it gets, regardless of party. And now the very people who have been helping him retain his seat in Congress, you got a significant portion of them, they're like, hey, man, when Trump was in, I had more money. When Trump was in, I didn't have people taking my jobs. When Trump was in, this and this and this. Now we got Biden and it's getting worse. And they're acting with economic rationality. You can't blame them. But Clyburn's just all upset because he can't, crack the whip and bring in the vote anymore. So that's kind of what this whole thing reminds me of. But yeah, if you happen this evening, and by the way, I'll give him a commercial shout out right now. Rich Barris will be doing live coverage of the South Carolina primary results on his locals page. So if I'm going to recommend you to anybody, if you want to join his locals page, it's like a monthly subscription, but you're going to get some fantastic information. I mean, I'm not just saying this because I like Rich. I mean, he's that professionally good. He's going to have some fantastic results that, he'll be bringing in the information. So if you want somebody to like spill the tea, as the kids say these days, then I recommend him to you. But yeah, keep an eye on the African American vote tonight, because we're finally going to get an indication of what's actually going on. And maybe South Carolina is not the best barometer for this. I don't know. But it's what we've got in front of us right now. So let's just see what happens tonight. Okay. Oh, what else have we got in HodgePodge stew? Oh, speaking of states in the union, I think it was Gypsy that put me on to this next story. I think she tweeted this at me. And Gypsy, if it wasn't you, I apologize, but I'm thinking it was. Y'all seen this? This is a post from Nick Sortor on Twitter. Biden administration's created a massive homeless crisis on Maui. West Maui and Lahaina residents are literally being forced out of their homes and into literal roadside tents due to Biden's FEMA. FEMA's housing efforts have been a total failure. Now they've resulted in coercing landlords to evict their current tenants and replace them with FEMA tenants. FEMA has driven rent prices through the roof, causing housing to become unaffordable to the masses, as FEMA is paying at least 130% above market rates. Meanwhile, short-term rentals sit vacant. Many of these newly displaced residents have lost their jobs due to the fire anyway, so now their only choices are to be homeless or move off the island. They're receiving zero aid whatsoever. Where is Joe Biden? Yeah. Yep. Yeah, could be. Could be. Could be. So yeah, just some things of note. I thought I'd pass them along. Oh, I will mention this. I'll pull this up because this sort of gets to one of our next stories in the HodgePodge stew. Let me pull up this comment. DeSantis was the first to start sending illegals north to Democrat sanctuary cities, which helped kickstart blacks in places like Chicago saying they're going to vote Republican. Now, I'm not sure if it was DeSantis, but yeah, your point is well taken. There have been Republican governors, DeSantis, Abbott, others, who are like, well, hey, New York City, hey, Chicago, you want to be sanctuary cities? We'll give you something to sanctuary. Here you go. And that kind of leads to our next story. Did you guys hear about the 4 illegal immigrants in New York City that beat up the 2 cops? Okay, all right. You could be. I don't have the fact in front of me. You could be very well right. So I'm not that point. I'm not going to argue with you. Okay, all right. Loser. Hat tip. You're right. You're right. Did you guys hear about the 4 illegal immigrants that beat up the 2 New York City cops? No, I'm not starting a joke here. That's legitimately what happened. Okay, so finally they break it up. Okay, good. Well, anyway, yeah, exactly. Exactly. Well, I don't know where they've absconded to, but the story gets even worse. So hang on to that. So that leads to what happens next. They're arrested. These 4 guys are arrested. And in less than 24 hours, they're back on the streets. No bail, no trial. And if you want the poster child for why we need to secure the southern border and stop the flow of illegal immigration, here's the poster child for it right here. This is from Miranda Devine. Look at this charmer coming out of court today. Illegal alien comes to New York, allegedly attacks New York State police officers with a gang of fellow illegals. He is arrested and released without bail. Is there a single American who would object to it if he were deported? Not this one. 3 hours. That's how long this joker was in jail. 3 hours, and he was back on the streets. No bail, no nothing. He gets to beat up not only a resident of New York City, but a police officer with absolute no consequences. Yep. Processing multi-millions of people over 3 years of the Biden administration is just doing wonders for the country. Absolutely wonders. But fear not, folks. Fear not. Politicians in New York State have a pretty good idea of what we ought to do about this situation, which brings us to a story from the New York Post. Kathy Hochul suggests deporting mob of migrants who pounded cops in caught-on-camera attack near Times Square. Let me take you directly to these incredibly intelligent comments made by Her Honor, the Governor. Quote, I think that's actually something that should be looked at, Hochul replied. I mean, if someone commits a crime against a police officer in the state of New York and they're not here legally, it's definitely worth checking into. These law enforcement officers should never be under any circumstances be subjected to physical assault. It's wrong on all accounts, and I'm looking to judges and prosecutors to do the right thing. Hey, Kathy! Hey, dipshit! I got a better idea. How about you grow a set, stare the Biden administration in the eye, and say, stop this. We're tired of it. Oh, I think it might be a good idea if we deport them. I mean, no police officer should be under this kind of... Yeah, exactly. What a joke. Police officers in her state's jurisdiction are getting the crap beat out of them by not even residents of New York City, not even residents of New York State. Hell no, illegal immigrants. Well, I think it might be something we want to look at, that we have them deported. You think, Kathy? Oh my God. I'm not even going to ask the question, have you taken leave of your senses? I know you don't even have them to begin with. To take leave of your senses means you've actually got the intelligence to know that what's going on is wrong. You haven't even got the brains to figure that out. Idiot. Instead of like standing around wringing your hands about this, how about you hold a press conference with Ron DeSantis and Greg Abbott and say, you know, we don't agree on everything politically, but I've had enough. I'm standing with these two gentlemen and calling on the Biden administration to shut down the border. There's a good idea. But you won't do that. You want to keep taking in federal money to house, educate, provide health care for not residents of your state, illegal aliens, illegal immigrants. But then on the other hand, poo-poo the fact that this is happening to you. You know, I've seen some bad governors out of New York over the years, but I've never seen one so abjectly as stupid as this woman. Stupid, corrupt, absolutely. I pray God that what Matt Antar, who was my guest the other night for Chatting on the Porch, I pray that what he's seeing is coming true. That New York is slowly but steadily saying we've had enough. I don't know what's going to happen in this year's election up there. I don't know what's going to happen in 2021 in the next round of city council elections or the next mayor's elections. But my God, something up. I mean, look, y'all people living in New York State, New York City. Look, this is not directed at every one of you, but this is directed at some of you. Okay. How much more of this do you want to take? How much more of someone walking up and slapping you in the face politically in one form or another do you want to keep on taking? If it's an issue that you can't or won't leave New York City, that I understand. Okay? There's all kinds of reasons to live in New York City. I get that. Some people can leave and they don't. Some people are not able to leave for various reasons of money or family or whatever. I respect all that. But for those of y'all that keep voting for this kind of nonsense, I have a question for you. You keep voting for these Democrats. You keep voting for all these people that are hurting you physically, financially, in every way possible. How long do you want to keep doing that before you've had enough? Because frankly, I mean, I don't know how many more stories have to be printed in the Washington Post or come across your TV screens on the evening news up there before you all say, you know what? I'm never going to admit to doing it, but I'm going to vote for somebody else. I've got to. And I get it. It's a big change. And I'm not saying it's going to be easy, and I'm not saying it's going to happen overnight, but y'all got to do something up there. Your state is being destroyed. New York City is being destroyed. And I'm not, look, I have friends and acquaintances of mine. I'm not getting on them. They know what's wrong. They know it's wrong. They're doing everything they can, you know, with the talents they've got and with the influence they have to make a difference. I'm talking about y'all that's been voting for this stuff. For these politicians that have been doing this to you for years, it's now reached the point. It's no longer a theoretical discussion. This is in y'all's grill. This is on y'all's front door. This is getting your kids killed. This is getting your family members killed. It's destroying jobs up there. It's taking away vital resources that ought to be spent on the citizens of New York City and the residents of New York State. How long do you all want to tolerate this before you finally do something to change it? I mean, I'm sorry. I know I need to get off my soapbox where this topic is concerned. But how long do y'all want to get smacked in the face before you finally fight back? Just saying. Okay, now I will get off my soapbox. Lord, I have railed on enough with that. Woo! Lordy, lordy, lordy. Have mercy. Goodness gracious. Oh, let's see. What else have we got going on in the news? Let's see. Let me tell you. Oh, by the by. And loser, look at the clock. Hey, maybe I do need another moment of meditation. You could be right. Oh. By the by, did you hear about Congressman Robert Garcia last week? Now, if y'all don't know who he is a member of Congress. He's a Democrat from California. And he, Leanne, I did not pull that one up. Okay. All right. I'm going to make you promise and do my best to fulfill it. I'm going to get to that story and do my best to do it sometime, if not this week, then for sure next Saturday. I owe you one because that is a valid story we ought to get to. Just jotting myself a note here. But anyway, Congressman Robert Garcia, Democrat, California. Did you guys hear about his commentary in some committee meeting? His interpretation of Trump's border security plan. This is funny. And I'm sorry. In the midst of all that's crazy going on, I had to laugh about this. I'm going to play this clip and then I'm going to show you a picture. And I couldn't help but laugh. So here is Congressman Robert Garcia talking about Trump's proposed border security plan. Listen to this.
I will not yield. I want to remind the public that Donald Trump and House Republicans also have their own ideas for the border. So let's review the majority's border ideas that they've actually presented. Here they are. Donald Trump actually has said that he wants to build alligator moats along the border. That's one of his incredible ideas. Another idea that Donald Trump has promoted is he actually wants to electrify the border fence and maybe even put some spikes on the border. That's another Donald Trump and MAGA majority border idea. Another idea, which I'm not sure how well it would go, is he wants to actually bomb northern Mexico with missiles. That's another Trump idea. And finally, I think one of the ones that I think is the most grotesque is suggestions that instead we should maybe just shoot migrants in the legs as they cross the border. So once again, the Donald Trump and MAGA plan is alligator moats, bombing northern Mexico, shooting migrants in the legs, and electrifying the fence and putting spikes on them. That is the Donald Trump border plan.
Okay. All right. Now, laying aside the supposed idea of shooting somebody in the leg, I have a question for you, my audience. Does anybody really have a problem with any of the supposedly proposed ideas on how to secure the southern border? Electrify the fence, shoot missiles into Mexico, or put in the alligator moat is the one that I love the most. I'm down for that idea. Oh my God. This is great. This is absolutely great. No, I didn't figure you'd have a problem with it. Oh my God. Now look. This is one of those moments when you have two things converging that occasionally will happen in American politics. Well, they could get the water from the Rio Grande River. I'm pretty sure they could pump it in. Maybe, I don't know. We'll find someplace to get the water. I mean, I'm really just kind of down with this idea. I'm getting down with this. Let's see. First, they got to climb a 30-foot fence, and then on getting past the fence, they've got to go through an alligator moat. You know, I'm kind of down with this idea. Okay, the convergence of two things. Number one, political hyperbole on the part of Donald Trump. And the Democrats' tendency to take what he has said and just try to make more out of it than it actually is. It reminds me very much of Selena Zito's observation about Donald Trump from back in 2016. And that is, Trump's enemies take Trump literally, but they don't take him seriously. Whereas Trump's supporters take him seriously, but they don't take him literally. Okay? Is Donald Trump being serious with the idea of shooting people in the legs or dropping bombs in Mexico? More than no. Come on, guys. Really? The alligator moat, he might be serious. But I just no. Come on. You know. I got to put this up here. This is just too good. This is just funny as all get out. Is he being serious about these three or four things? No, of course not. Well, and yeah, this goes to my point. They take him literally, but they don't take him seriously. Whereas Trump supporters take him seriously, but they understand he's not going to do this. It's crazy. But it gets the point across. I saw this clip and I was like, oh, this is too funny. I got to play this. I mean, there's part of me that I knows that I shouldn't laugh at it. And the other part of me goes, oh, this is just too freaking funny. This is just absolutely too funny.
Go back to
Sorry. boomered something there. I know, shocking to believe that I'd actually do something like that, but I did. I boomered it. Which one more thing as it relates to the border, and I have got to play this. I used this clip earlier in the week on my live stream, on one of my videos, and you know, I've always said I'm never ceases to amaze me the unmitigated gall that some politicians will exercise when they're talking about issues. And I tell you what, even for Joe Biden, he reached a height today that I never thought was possible. Okay. And I want to play you this clip talking about the border. And then I want to make a comment about it. So this comes from Fox News. Just watch this for a second.
Go back to, unfortunately, the sound from Marie One. This has to do with immigration and the question about the border. Take a listen.
That's not all I can do. Just give me the power. I've asked for the very day I got it off. Give me the border patrol. Give me the people. Give me the people, the judges. Give me the people who can stop this and make it work right.
Now, this one seems pretty easy, Molly, because I've done all I can do. Yes, on day one, there were 94 executive orders that overturned all of the policies the Trump administration has in place. He hasn't done all he can do.
He's done all he can do to open the border. And all of these things were done through executive action or removal of policies that were put in place piece by piece over the course of the previous administration. He was very clear when he ran for office that he wanted to open up the border. And then
there's a lot of things, in my opinion, that will turn this election if Trump does win. There's a lot of things that are going to turn this election, okay? But the southern border and how it has been handled, or maybe it's better to say how it has been dismantled, is going to be, to me, the issue that drives this election. The economy and inflation will probably be a close second and third, but it's going to be the border. And there is no way in the infernal regions of hell that Joe Biden can stand there and say, hey, give me a bill. Give me the power. I'll shut it down tomorrow. No, sir. No, sir. That border was under control the moment you took your hand off the Bible. That border had the lowest amount of crossings in 40 years. That border was absolutely under control, and you undid everything Donald Trump had done in 4 years to get it to that point in the blink of an eye. And now, in 3 years, we've got 6 million illegal immigrants who crossed the border. It might even be more than that for all we know. And you have the gall to stand there in front of the American people and say to them, hey, give me the power. Give me the border patrol agents. Give me the judges. I'll shut it down tomorrow. No, sir. You have everything. You have always had everything you need. It was handed to you on day one. What did you do? I'll show you what you did. It's real simple. You did this. Wadded everything up and threw it away. That's what you did with your authority and your power to control the border. You have made a royal mess of the southern border of the United States, the control of it and the flow of individuals across it. And now you're standing around saying, well, if you just give me the power, I'll take care of it. No. Democrat, Republican, liberal, conservative, it doesn't matter. Everybody can look at what you've done versus what we had and realize that you are full of crap like a Christmas goose. Not this time, big boy. You don't get away with it. Not on that issue, anyway. I'm not saying you couldn't win in November, but I'll tell you one thing, it won't be because of how you handle the southern border. That's for daggone sure. Oh, what else goes on in the world? By the by. Does the name Tara Reid mean anything to anybody? If it does, give me an F in chat or whatever the kids do these days. Or something. Let me know. Does the name Tara Reid ring any bells for anybody? I thought it might. See, I've always said I've got the most intelligent audience on the internet. Yeah, we're gonna get. Yeah, we got an F in chat. Yeah, buddy. Hey, Ribbon, how you doing, brother? Good to see you. I don't know if it has, but I'll show you something here. I think this one's real interesting. Tara Reid has filed a lawsuit against the FBI. Now, for those of you who don't know who Tara Reid is, if you're watching this, maybe you're like, who is this girl? She used to work as a staffer or intern, one of the two, back in the 1990s in Joe Biden's office when he was a U.S. Senator. And she has made the statement that Joe Biden sexually harassed her and committed assault. If I remember the accusation correctly, it's that he inappropriately touched her without consent, basically engaging in behavior of which he has accused Monsieur Trump of being guilty of. Okay. So she has filed, and it went nowhere in 2020. She came out with these allegations very early on, and the press did one of these jobs: lift carpet, sweep under rug, drop carpet. Okay. So that leads to this. She has filed lawsuit against the FBI. I want to read you this letter. For immediate release, Tara Reid, the Joseph Biden sexual abuse victim, through her London-based attorney, Dr. Jonathan Levy, has filed a tort complaint with the United States Department of Justice seeking $10 million in damages for invasion of privacy, emotional distress, and violation of state and federal constitutional rights. Tara Reid was sexually victimized by then Senator Joseph Biden in 1993. Her case was suppressed by congressional investigators to protect Senator Biden, and the records remain sealed. When Tara spoke out again in 2019, she was immediately subjected to an ongoing FBI operation to re-victimize her a second time. The FBI operation, codenamed Cassandra, was opened in order to retaliate, intimidate, discredit, and if possible, eliminate Tara as a threat to President Biden. Her tort complaint provides the details. Last month, Ms. Reid requested the Department of Justice investigate violations of her civil rights by the FBI and to turn over and expunge her file. According to her lawyer, Dr. Jonathan Levy, DOJ has not responded, and FBI has not handed over Tara Reid's FBI file. Tara Reid is now requesting $10 million in damages from the FBI, which Levy states is justified given the recent, much larger speech related to judgments against Rudy Giuliani and former President Donald Trump. Dr. Levy stated, quote, "The United States should have a two-tiered system of justice. If President Trump and Mr. Giuliani can be assessed tens of millions in damages for their words, a weaponized FBI that seeks to silence, intimidate, and eliminate Joe Biden's victim, Tara Reid, must also be held accountable. Failing to do so means our justice system and legal system have become an instrument of political oppression and suppression." An entire copy of the complaint can be downloaded here. Sincerely, Dr. Jonathan Levy, attorney at law. Woo! So there you go. Now, the question was asked, has the statute of limitations run out on her being able to bring an action against Biden directly? And Corey probably has. I don't think anybody's wrong on that one. That said, however, this suit is not against Biden, it's against the FBI. And if they're required to turn over her file and unseal whatever information is in there, this could get really interesting. Now, here's a good question. Because if this thing does get any traction in the press, you know they're going to. Oh, this is just election interference on behalf of Trump. Trump's people did this. It's probably Roger Stone put her up to it. You know this crap is coming, right? You know this is going to happen. So just keep an eye on this one. This is going to be fun. This is going to be absolutely fun. Oh, yes. What else have we got going on in the news? There's a couple or three other little items out there. Oh, by the by. Speaking of law enforcement and other things of interest, you guys remember the porno that was being made in the Senate committee hearing room by the young staffer of Ben Cardin? Remember that one? Yeah. The gentleman and his sex partner made videos in the committee hearing room, one of the committee hearing rooms on Capitol Hill. Very explicit videos. And what happened because of that? Well, yeah, everybody chat already has heard about this one. For now, we are closing the investigation into the facts and circumstances surrounding a sex video that was recorded inside the Hart Senate building on the morning of Wednesday, December 13th. They were doing that in the morning? Wow, didn't know that. I thought it was at night. As well as doing a comprehensive investigation, possible charges. It was determined, despite likely violation of congressional policy. Oh my God. Violation of congressional policy. There's currently no evidence that a crime was committed. Although the hearing room was not open to the public at the time, the congressional staffer involved had access to the room. The two people of interest were not cooperative. Oh, gee, imagine that. Nor were the elements of any possible crimes met. The congressional staffer, who has since resigned from his job, exercised his Fifth Amendment right to remain silent and refused to talk to us. Our investigators are willing to review new evidence should any come to light. And how many individuals related to January 6th are still rotting in jail cells? Just saying. They were in the Capitol too. They didn't destroy any property. They're just walking around. And the lengths that people would go to find them and get them in prison is remarkable. Yeah. Good question. That's a good one. It just stuff that makes you shake your head. Unbelievable. Oh gosh, what else is going on in the world? There's a bunch of other stuff. There's one that I find really interesting. And this one just kind of blew my mind. This one just, you know how people have been saying for the longest time that the efforts to get Donald Trump off the ballot are just isolated to him and how bad an individual he is, and his actions rise to such a level that we've got to protect democracy by making sure that people can't exercise democracy by the fact that we won't let him on the ballot? Well, if you needed proof today that it's not just Trump, there's news out of Oregon that'll absolutely blow your mind. This is from justthenews.com. Check this out. Oregon GOP state senators who staged a walkout over abortion cannot run for re-election, says the Oregon State Supreme Court. The measure to prevent walkouts passed after GOP lawmakers staged other walkouts from the legislature in 2019, 2020, and 2021. Article written by Madeleine Hubbard, we read the following. The Oregon Supreme Court on Thursday ruled that 10 Republican state senators are ineligible to run for re-election after they participated in a quorum-denying walkout for 6 weeks last year to stall legislation on abortion, transgender treatment, and firearms. The High Court decided in favor of the Oregon Secretary of State LaVon Griffin Valade, who had disqualified the senators from running for office again after voters approved a measure in 2022 to amend the state constitution to ban lawmakers with more than 10 unexcused absences from running again. The measure to prevent walkouts passed after the GOP lawmakers staged other walkouts from the legislature in 2019, 20, and 21. 5 of the 10 Republican state senators, Tim Knopp, Daniel Bonham, Suzanne Weber, Dennis Lithicum, and Lynn Findle, had filed a lawsuit against Secretary of State over the decision. The walkout, which was the longest in Oregon's history, resulted in hundreds of bills being stalled, according to the Associated Press. I got a message for Democrats out in Oregon. Be very, very careful what you wish for and or what you do, because you might somewhere down the line be the recipient of the law of unintended consequences. You're doing this against Republicans today, saying you're not going to slow down the process of our legislative proceedings. Hey, that's their right to do it, provided that they're not breaking any laws in the process. As far as I'm concerned, I'm all about a good political stunt, and that's exactly what these guys did. They were trying to slow it down so we could have a conversation, and maybe, just maybe, they thought they could change the minds of their fellow legislators and prevent them from doing something very bad. But instead of listening to them, you said, nope, you're not going to do it. You're not going to do it. Well, be advised, if the day ever comes that the shoe's on the other foot and Republicans out there in Oregon ever have the majority in the legislature, and you try and pull the stunt they did, don't you dare cry to anybody if you don't get to run for office again, because you helped put this in place. So you just remember this. And yeah, I was trying to think of some other examples. And hello, small time Republic, glad to have you here. When the left went nuts, when Democrats, yeah, I do remember. They went crazy. Oh, this is terrible. This is awful. They're standing up for LGBTQ rights, and you're trying to throw them out of the legislature. Well, okay. I don't want to hear it. Not after what you did out in Oregon. No, sir. No, sir. Yeah, and I do. Texas is a great example of this. I was thinking about the state of Texas. They pulled this crap. You didn't see the Republicans trying to throw them out. Well, then again, the Republicans in Texas legislature are a little shaky, shall we say. So yeah, all kinds of things going on in the world. Gosh, what else? Oh, yeah. One last story and we'll wrap it up.
You know, I find it a little bit surprising given what Justice Sotomayor described.
Stop it. Stop that.
There about the state.
Stop it.
A little bit surprising given.
Thank you. I love it when my technology gets the better of me, which is frequent, by the way. Anyway, one last story. You guys heard that there are members of the United States Supreme Court who are feeling very frustrated these days? Well, apparently, one of them has voiced their frustrations in a speech. Take a look at this. Sotomayor says she feels frustration daily as conservative justices move the U.S. to the right. This is an article by Sarah Fortinsky. U.S. Supreme Court Justice Sonia Sotomayor said Monday she feels daily frustration as conservative justices move the country to the ideological right. In an appearance at the University of California, Berkeley School of Law, Sotomayor was asked how she copes with the consistently conservative rulings from the court. Quote, "Every loss truly traumatizes me, but I get up the next morning," she said in response to the question. The San Francisco Chronicle reported the crowd, about 1,300 students, applauded. In her remarks, she criticized her, quote, originalist colleagues, whom she said have come up with new ways to interpret the Constitution, changing, quote, some rulings that many of us believe were well established, the Chronicle reported. The 6-3 conservative court has had an eventful couple of terms, making its mark on some of the most consequential aspects of everyday life, from overturning the federal right to an abortion to ruling affirmative action is unconstitutional in colleges, I should say. But Sotomayor also imparted a message of hope to the crowd, pushing them to be encouraged by the difference they can make. Change will never happen on its own. Change happens because people care about moving the arc of the universe toward justice. What does that even mean? But now it's your turn to carry that burden. What choice do you have but to fight for the good fight? Now, I bring up this article. Because it didn't take long for a drum beat to start. And you really can't hear it right now. And you're not going to hear it, but don't be surprised if after the court ends its term in June, if this doesn't start getting out into the public ether. I'm going to play you a clip that ran the other day on CNN. And this is really interesting. Folks, do me a favor, take a listen to this.
So I find it a little bit surprising, given what Justice Sotomayor describes there about the stakes of what is happening before the Supreme Court, that she is not retired. She's 69 years old. She's been on the court for 15 years. It's quite possible the Democrats will lose control of the Senate in the next election, and who knows how long it could be before there's a next opportunity for a Democratic president to make a new appointment into the seat that she sits in. I mean, Justice Scalia stuck around through the 2006 election, did not make it to 2017, which would have been the next opportunity. Now he had Mitch McConnell running interference for him. But, you know, it can be more than a decade before there's another opportunity for a Democratic appointment with a Democratic Senate. It seems like that it would be the right time strategically for her to step down in favor of somebody younger if she's very.
Okay, did you guys catch what's going on here? Well, she's 69 years old. Well, she's been on the court for 15 years. Well, the Senate might flip over to Republican. We don't know when there'd be another opportunity. I mean, we've got control of the Senate now. We've got a Democrat president. Maybe it's time she thinks about it. I'm hearing shades of Ruth Bader Ginsburg all over again. Y'all can call me crazy if you want to, but I'm telling you, that's where they're going with this. That's absolutely where they're going with it. And in all fairness, in all seriousness, though, I have heard it said of Sotomayor that she is not in good health. Now, I have never seen that necessarily printed anywhere. I think I've heard it said has diabetic condition. I could be absolutely wrong about that, but I have heard it said she's not necessarily in good health, even though by Supreme Court standards, she's relatively young, at 70. Okay. But I have heard it said that she's not exactly in the best of health. Don't be surprised. Do not be surprised at all if after the June term ends, you start hearing this drumbeat get louder and louder. I mean, Kagan is younger than Sotomayor, and Ketanji Jackson was just appointed. So if anybody among the liberal justices were going to retire, odds are it'd be Sotomayor. Don't be surprised if you start seeing it. If you start hearing this, it's widely regarded as, I've heard that said too. I've heard that said. I could see that. I could absolutely see that. I could absolutely see that. Now, I don't know if this is the correct translation or not, but just putting it out there. Anyway, and with that, we're going to wrap it up because, and loser, again, look at the clock. The flexible third hour has come into play. Didn't quite make it a full 3 hours, but it's been a pretty good little session here. So yeah. Now, as I mentioned earlier, we're going to have a couple of really cool things coming up this week. Both of them related to some things that are going on. Well, you better be a believer, daggone it. Repeat next stream. Oh my gosh. I don't know. We'll see what we can do. We'll see what we can do. We'll see what we can do. But yeah, we've got some really cool things coming up next week. And let me find my thumbnails here. Give me 1 second. Here's one of them. So be advised that we've got a couple of really, really good things coming up next week. And one of them sets up the other. This coming Wednesday, we're going to have Daniel R. Street, who's an attorney out of Louisiana. We're going to be talking about the upcoming Supreme Court case of Trump v. Anderson, which is going to be argued before the U.S. Supreme Court on Thursday at 10 a.m. And for Thursday, 10 a.m., we're going to live stream cover the oral arguments before the Supreme Court. And like I said, much earlier in this session, they don't allow cameras in the courtroom, but they do allow audio. And thanks to my good buddy Ruben Christopher Haynes, and Ruben, if you're still out there, I got a hat tip to you, sir, for reminding me or pointing out the fact they do have a audio live stream. So I'll talk to Ruben, see if he's available to do it. Either way, if I'm doing it solo by myself or Ruben and I are going to do it together, we're going to cover this thing. And yeah, this is going to be pretty cool. So Daniel Street's going to be chatting on the porch with me. Is going to be on the front porch with me this Wednesday night at 7:30 talking about this case and others. And then Thursday morning, we're going to live stream cover Trump v. Anderson. So this is going to be pretty cool. So yeah, the oral argument should take maybe about an hour and a half from what I understand, maybe 2 hours at the most. So yeah, this is going to be really, really interesting. This is going to be fun. So I want to thank all you guys for hanging out with me this morning and now early afternoon. As always, you guys are absolutely fantastic. Thank you for continuing everything you do to spread the word about this channel. Tell your friends, tell your mothers, your brothers, your lovers, your sisters, your misters to sub to my channels on YouTube and Rumble, to go back to Dave's question from earlier. And, you guys have a great rest of the weekend. And we'll be back next week with more videos, more live streams, doing all kinds of fun stuff. So as we wrap it up, I ask you, as always, remember the words of that great American philosopher, Tom T. Hall, when he said, "It's faster horses, younger lovers, older whiskey, and more money." We'll see you guys later.